It's time to shine during this Leo new moon. Let's start this video off with one big collective sigh of relief. It feels so good to be moving out of this dense energy that we've been dragged through over the last couple of months. And we're now in the revitalizing and fresh light of the sun. Fiery Leo season is here in full force. This is so refreshing because the last couple of months have been brutal for a lot of us. I've been talking about it a lot. This ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction. In June, they were in an opposition to the war god Mars. In the beginning of July, we had the eclipses with Saturn and Pluto in the nodes. So it was kind of a 1-2 punch, a double whammy. June and July were and will be two of the most pressurized months of this year. Pluto's the planet of transformation. A transformation through deep emotional healing, triggered by Saturn and the nodes of the moon, demanding an upheaval of our old habits, calling us to mature. It's been a theme for the year, really, but hit a laser focal point over the last 8 weeks. In our personal lives, we've felt the pressure of this energy. On the world stage, too, as the crazy, outdated Capricornian systems start to unravel as they cling to their vestiges of power and control. But it's sand slipping through their fingers. Saturn and Pluto are in the sign of Capricorn, and the nodes of the moon are in Capricorn and Cancer along that axis. So we're experiencing some very heavy-duty earth and water energy this year. Another thing I haven't talked about much yet is that Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus is another earth sign. So Uranus is the earthquakes and lightning bolts, the planet of disruption in the sign of Taurus, the sign of Mother Earth. I think we've noticed the weather doing some pretty strange things, changing and getting more extreme. But Taurus is also related to the status quo. A stubborn fixation on materialism would be one shadow side representation of it. Another would be a refusal to adapt and denial. So these things are getting shaken up by the god of lightning as well. Pluto will be in Capricorn until November of 2024. And Uranus will be in Taurus until July of 2025. So this dynamic couple is transforming and shaking up the old to make way for the new in the Aquarian age. Now, I believe the Aquarian age started right around the beginning of the 20th century, when the Wright brothers made their first flight. And then we had all the stuff with Tesla. And then we made it to the moon 66 years after the first flight. And of course, we've noticed a massive expansion and acceleration in tech since then. It kind of spins the head to even think about it. So when Pluto and Uranus enter Aquarius in 2025, I feel this will really cement us into the Aquarian age. So now we are letting go of the old to make way for the new, which is a bumpy process as we're experiencing. So in 2019 and into the beginning of 2020 with this ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, we're really feeling it. We're getting a maximum pulse of pressure, especially over the last 2 months as this earth and water axis has been really pummeled. Now, earth and water energy get along quite well, typically. But since Cancer and Capricorn are in an opposition to each other, there is some tension there. This year-long journey feels like the walls of the dam are deteriorating as the pressure of the water behind it builds. Fissures form, shaped like lightning bolts, and rip through the structure that once stood strong. And then the wall gives way to the brute force of droplets en masse, and the water sweeps through the land, carrying along with it earth and debris. Now, if we get swept up in it, we struggle to keep our heads above water and get exhausted from the effort. Our lives changed forever. The landscape changed forever. Whether collectively or individually, we've all been swept along by the rivers of change. It's been a time of testing, a time of exhaustion. But those who are suffering the most are the ones that resist change with all their stubborn might. Those who embrace change. Those who find it refreshing to outgrow themselves and to see their environment around them evolve as well. Of course, coupled with the realization that, there may be growing pains through that process. But ultimately, that's the reason we're here, is to evolve. Kind of a soapbox statement, but that's a common philosophy you'll find all over the world. Those people will do better during this time, and they will wring out all the potential of this set of energy currently running through human consciousness. So that's the backdrop amidst the backdrop, big picture. Now in the foreground, we have this Leo new moon, solar Leo, ruled by the sun. And we can bust out our magnifying glass to intensify the rays of the sun, to really burn a hole of meaning and understanding about this energetic transition we've just made. And it's a big one. It's a big one. We've now left the deluge, okay, and now we can cook in the light of the sun. We can dry off. We can, get a suntan as well. It's much lighter. It's much brighter. Keep in mind, though, that the eclipses of July set in motion a 6-month wave of influence. So we may still be tested in certain areas of our lives, depending on where the eclipses landed in our own personal birth charts. Overall, though, we've transitioned into a much more enlivened energy. A new beginning. That's a new moon concept. At the time of this recording, we have the Sun and Mars in Leo. By the time the new moon rolls around on July 31st at 8:11 PM Pacific, Venus and the moon will have joined them in Leo as well. So this major leonine pulse, okay, this new beginning centered on Leo, the king of the beasts. And Leo likes to be centered on, nothing wrong with that. This is our time to shine, to express our brightness and luminosity. Leo is the sign of forthrightness, of authenticity, and joy. So it's time to radiate from our core self. But authenticity is key, because pure Leo is genuine. This feels like a time for celebration, a time for letting loose a bit and expressing our joys. It feels like we've been dragged through the mud a bit. So now let's dance since the worst is behind us. Leo is charismatic and has leadership qualities. So it's time to, puff up our chests a little bit, take up some more space. It makes me think of Jordan Peterson's recommendation from his book, 12 Rules for Life. One of his rules was, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Have the posture of a lion, the king of the beasts. Strength and a healthy pride for our own authenticity. Safely secure behind a quiet dignity. Not in an obnoxious, overly prideful way. Okay, that's Leo, shadow side. Okay, but in an honoring of our own special qualities that we can shine into this world. The shadow side of Leo can come across a bit pompous and grandiose, and in extreme cases, narcissistic. So I could imagine some literal leaders out there trying to, puff out their chests and strut their stuff with gusto, even in the face of an unimpressed crowd full of boos and eye rolls. But luckily, they're the minority within the sea of souls. Now, when considering the evolutionary path for Leo, it's that of creativity, of creative self-expression and spontaneous self-expression, a sense of theater, even. Anytime we leave evidence of what's going on inside, in our heart, in the hands of the world. Okay. Now we want to look at this a bit broadly. I don't want you to think, just putting paint on a canvas. It's any time we leave a stamp of ourselves on any person, place, or event. The question becomes, why is it a good idea to tap into this flow of creative self-expression? Well, the last couple months, as I've been saying, have been a bit rough. It's tired some of us out. It's brought some of us to our knees, which tends to close the heart a bit. Either way, it becomes a good idea to beam out our heart's intentions and feelings out into the world, somewhat of a Care Bear stare, so to speak. Because if they clap their hands, if the audience is receptive, it warms the heart and revitalizes us. So let's say I go to an open mic poetry slam, and I bravely and nervously step up to the microphone, my feet slightly turned inwards, sweat forming on my forehead, and I share my poem. And the audience is engaged. They're liking it. They're enjoying it. I can feel their reception. Okay. So here I am in a place of vulnerability, pouring out energy to them. They're feeding energy back to me. So this reciprocation of energy, this feedback loop of good juju, it enlivens us. Now, obviously, if I went on stage and the audience didn't respond at all and I just fell flat, that would feel pretty awful. Nobody wants to bomb. Which leads me to general advice for Leo, which is basically finding the right audience. Even if you're the most likable person on the entire planet, still 5% of the population isn't going to like you at all. So finding the right audience that you can express yourself to, they'll be receptive to it, and it lifts us up. We need lifting up now. But creative energy is at its maximum now. We have 4 planets in Leo, the performer, one of which is Venus, the goddess of the arts. And then we have the moon, sun, and Venus in a square to Uranus in Taurus. And Taurus archetypally is known as the musician. So creative energy there too. Actually, Venus rules Taurus. And then Uranus itself is the planet of individuality and innovation. So there's some strong inventiveness here. Also, during this new moon, we have Mercury stationing. It's been in retrograde. So here it's coming to a standstill from our perspective here on Earth. Whenever a planet's in retrograde, it's effectively supercharged. So we're getting this maximum mercurial dose as well. Now, Mercury is the mind. It's of thoughts and quick thinking. So the idea of a synaptic sparks that are igniting creative ingenuity and inspiration. Jupiter is stationing as well. It won't literally station till about a week after the new moon, but it's slowing down now, getting stronger. And it's in its own sign, Sagittarius. Also in a nice trine aspect to the Sun and Mars. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, encouraging us to open to our own subjective reality and be vulnerable by expressing it to others. From the evolutionary astrology perspective, Jupiter wants us to think more of ourselves, have more faith in ourselves. So a good Jupiter question is, how am I underestimating myself? How am I underestimating my own creative genius? Where am I holding back because of fear? That's Mars in Leo, busting through creative blocks caused by fear, resistance, and self-judgment. Mars in Leo actually makes me think of the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He describes the tyranny of our own inner resistances, stifling our own creative potential. Jupiter always knows that we're better than we think we are, and looks at us with a smile and a wink of generous encouragement. Venus is a key player here as well, because it's right next to this new moon. Venus is also known as the goddess of peace, tranquility, and love. And she's gently nudging us towards a more loving connection, which hasn't always been easy through this opposition we've been experiencing. This reality feels unstable and chaotic, but also quite captivating. The events of current times, the unfolding drama, has many eyes glued to the storyline. Many of us feel like we're on the precipice of something major. It's kind of like a thriller movie, partly disturbing, but also mesmerizing. So new moon in Leo next to Venus, it's time to shine our light into a world full of darkness and malevolence. So with shoulders back and chest out, hands at our hips in loving defiance, let's blast the darkness with positive intention for an ideal future with our Care Bear stare. That's the evolutionary aim, with the goal always to expand our consciousness.